Okay, what we're talking about here is a 1998 Dodge Grand Caravan with the 3.0-liter engine in it, and I was having some issues with starting the van. You can turn the key and just hear a click coming from the engine compartment. I was able to determine that that my battery was good, and that the starter relay was good, and I was getting power down to the starter. So based upon that, those troubleshooting steps, I was able to determine that probably something is going wrong with my starter. And I was going to replace the starter. It's a $75 part from a local auto parts store, and it's a remanufactured starter. But what they do most of the time is they just clean or replace some of the contacts inside the solenoid. Probably 99% of the time, there's not any other issues going on with the starter. But maybe not 99%, but it's worth looking at because you have to give them the core. If not, they charge you $30-some for the core anyways. So I'm going to show you how to take the starter out of the 1998 Caravan, and I'm going to show you what I did as far as cleaning the contacts, and then basically you can just put it back together in reverse order. So let's get started, and I don't think this is my first slide, so let's see. And give me 1 second here. Alright, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is disconnect the negative battery cable. Don't want to have any issues there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start taking apart a couple pieces of the air intake system here. These two 10mm bolts are on the front of the vehicle, and the box actually has a hose that goes to the place where your air cleaner is, and then the other one goes into the throttle body. So go ahead and take these two bolts completely out. And go ahead and loosen, there's two worm gears. Go ahead and loosen those. This one is on the throttle body. And the reason why we're taking this off is there are only two bolts on this starter, and one you have to get to from the top of the engine, and the other one you have to get to from the bottom. Excuse me. Here is another picture of another worm gear, and go ahead and just loosen that, and basically these two hoses will pull off, and then there's another little hose that shoots off to the side. It's pretty self-explanatory. It goes on to the valve cover. You'll just slide that right off as well. Now this is a picture from the bottom. Again, there are two bolts holding the starter in place, and this is the one that you have to access from the bottom. It's tight, but you can get in there to get it out. Now the top, if you're leaning over the engine, we're basically standing in the same spot where that air box was, where those first two bolts, the 10mm bolts were. And if you look underneath the blue arrow there, you can see my wrist, and I'm pointing right at the tip of the arrow of the bolt, the top bolt for the starter. So unfortunately, you can't see it, so this is the next best thing is to just point to where it is. Just can't get the camera in there. So, anyways, you're going to want to disconnect two cables. There's two cables on the starter. One is just a small little electrical connector, and then the other one you have to use, I think it might have been a 13mm or something like that, and it's got just one of those round washer style connectors. So take that off, you loosen the top bolt and the bottom bolt. Actually, just take them completely out, and then from underneath the van is how you're going to want to maneuver the starter down. And this is what it looks like, the two bolts. It also has a washer or a shim. I'm not really sure what you would call the washer that's in there. And that's what my starter looks like. This is another angle. This is that that washer style electrical connector that is underneath that you have to take off before you drop the starter. I'm just pointing to this right now. Don't unloosen this. This is one of the bolts that we're actually going to be taking completely out and cleaning. And another angle of the starter. Now, I used a Workmate work table. I'm sure you can mount this into a vise. Just be very careful that you don't squeeze it too hard where it's going to damage any of the gears on the other end. Just be mindful how you set it up. This vise is wooden, so I just put it in the Workmate, cinched it down, and these are the three, I believe they're 8mm bolts that come out, and underneath this cover is the plunger and the two contacts that we're going to be cleaning. So go ahead and take that completely off and pull the cap off. Now, I noticed, and if you look on the right-hand side of this picture, you can actually see the cap upside down with the rubber gasket in there, and for some reason or other from the factory it doesn't look like that it's sealed correctly. A piece of the gasket got pinched between the cover and the solenoid, and you can see the oil on the rail there on the right hand side was leaking in there and just corroding that terminal. The bottom arrows pointing up are the left and the right hand terminals that we're going to take out, and that big centerpiece is the actual plunger. Here's a picture of the cap upside down. Again, I actually had to snip a couple in two places and just take a section out of this rubber gasket in order for it to lay back in there. I just took a little piece of the straight section and connected it. Just once I put it in there, I put a little bit of the black ATV sealant in the space, but there really wasn't that much space. It was able to butt together, but the black ATV sealant was nice to keep the gasket seated into place when I did replace it, or when I did put it back on. Again, this is the plunger. You just grab it with your fingers and pull it straight up. There's a spring that's down in there as well too. No need to take that out. There's a little shaft in it, and it's pretty self-explanatory on how it comes out. But I've got the arrow pointing to there's a pretty big washer on the bottom of this that needs to be cleaned. It's going to be pitted, it's going to be corroded, and it needs to be shiny when you put it back together. It's real easy to do. Just kind of flip this over upside down. I've got a picture of one at the end of the slideshow that I'll show you, and just use wire brush, maybe a little sandpaper, maybe a file, just whatever works for you. Just want it really nice and clean. Alright, now this is looking down. I've pulled out the plunger. This is looking down into this cavity here, and on the left and the right hand side are those two bolts that are connectors, and these come out very easily, but I just had to show you the amount of corrosion that was in here. That was just amazing. My van was probably starting on maybe on the 10th try. Every other try it was just a click, and it wasn't connecting. So, and this is the reason why. So we're going to get these all cleaned up. Remember what that looks like. Again, this is another shot of the inside with the spring right there in the center and the two connectors on the left and the right hand side. You can just see the terminals are just black. So they were pretty bad, but they do come clean. There's a nice little close-up of the oil. I think that's exactly where the gasket was pinched between the cap, allowing contaminants to get inside there. And the van's got 160,000 miles on it, so it's lasted pretty good. And again, just take these out one side at a time. I think 13, 14 millimeter, and just unscrew the nut. And then there's a washer, and then there's another. There's a metal flat washer, and then there's another rubber washer that fits pretty tight to the bolt, and it holds that little plastic grommet or whatever you sleeve. And it all just pulls out. You just take the bolt off and to the right, and you slide the plastic grommet out to the right, and then you can actually take the bolt and slide it in towards the center where the plunger goes, and you'll see exactly those pieces just need to be completely spotless, cleaned up. Use your sandpaper, your file, wire brush, whatever. Get them cleaned up and assemble them back in. Do the same thing for the other side. They're almost identical, but just make sure everything is spotless before you put it back together. And this is a picture of a plunger. I forgot to take a picture of mine, but it looks almost the same. You'll see at the bottom where the copper is all corroded, and so you're going to want to go ahead and clean that up with a little piece of sandpaper or a file before you assemble that. And go ahead and just put everything back. Do one side at a time. The other side looks very, very similar to this side. Just do one side at a time, then put it all back together. Be sure to wipe out the inside of the tray as well. And this is what it should look like when you're done. So I got everything back together, and the van has started every single time since then. It's been It's been probably 6 or 7 hours since I've done it, and I've gone half a dozen or so places running errands this afternoon and didn't have any problems whatsoever. So I hope this helps you out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Just take it step by step, and you certainly could possibly save yourself $75 or whatever it costs for a rebuild. The principle, most starters work the same, and you just kind of get in there and just clean it up and do it and save yourself some money. All right, thanks for watching.